Unplugged, here we go. Rudy and the crew, exclusive interview. Welcome to the show, let's have some fun. Sweep Unplugged starts now.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Sweep Unplugged. Rudy Campos Jr. for Sweep the League TV. Be sure to go to our YouTube page. What you're going to do is go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, hit that subscribe button. That way you can get access to all the great content that we provide. Great in the market, STL 316, your brand new wrestling podcast. You've also got the big show, Sweep the League TV, that comes to you Monday through Friday. Well, now Tuesday through Friday, just for now at 9 p.m. Also, the great interviews here that we have at Sweep Unplugged, just like we've got today. Also, quick reminder, the new STL Music and SOTB collaboration is out. The Fox and Wemby Master song is out, so you do not want to miss that at all. It's available wherever music is available, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music. It's out right now. Go get it, go download it, go support STL Music and SOTB, because we're providing a lot of Spurs music as well for you guys out there. Nonetheless, let's not waste any time here on Sweep Unplugged. We have a very special guest today talking to us, and like we've been talking about 2025. We've talked fitness, we've talked financial, we've talked mental game as far as how to separate, your inner thoughts and communication with people outside and making sure you've got a great relationship with people. Today we're going into the medical field, and no, I'm not becoming a doctor. I don't have a PhD. I have nothing like that. So lucky for us, we're able to get a doctor with us to go into the medical field and some alternate treatments that are pretty popular, that are really talked about everywhere in the country. You're always hearing about this in some sort of way, but we're getting the inside scoop on it from our guest today, Dr. Joseph Rosado. And first things first, what you can do is go to his website, and that's going to be provided at the bottom here. Scroll in, it's josephrosadomd.com. Contact him today for anything that we are talking about. Let's go ahead and bring him on to the show right now. Let's welcome in our guest, Dr. Joseph Rosado. Doctor, I appreciate you joining us here on Sweep Unplugged.
My pleasure, Rudy. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, awesome. Anytime. And, we're going to have a little bit of fun because Dr. Joseph's basically, he leaked it out to me that he's a San Antonio Spurs fan. So we're going to have some fun at the end of the show with our top 5 on the San Antonio Spurs. So be sure to get your list going there, Doctor. Yes. There's some great Spurs players out there.
The top 5 is the heartbreak that they've given me the past few years. That's the top 5 right there.
Well, after the moves they made with De'Aaron Fox and probably another move they will make soon, maybe there will be no more top 5 heartaches ever for San Antonio. So talking to Dr. Joseph Rosado here. And when we talk about life changing conditions, I mean, there's a lot of medical, conditions that we could have. Some could be small, some could be impacting us every single second of our life. And one of the alternative treatments that you talk about, and it involves, cannabis, it's medical marijuana. There's even one, ketamine therapy. Can you kind of break down a little bit of each one and how they work towards somebody? Because you've always got the left side, you got the right side, you got the front, the back. You've got so many people that have different ideas on it. And I don't know if everybody truly is educated on every kind of treatment.
And that is true. And the problem has been that we have, unfortunately, placed our trust in individuals that have an agenda, i.e., religious institutions, government agencies, politicians, etc. And so that being said, we've already started controversially. So let's just go ahead and go deeper. So how do I use these two substances, which are different but yet similar? Different in that one is a natural plant. It grows out, in the field, you plant it, etc. Whereas ketamine, or its origins are veterinary medicine. It was used as a horse tranquilizer. And then in the 90s, it was a big party drug at, raves, etc. But through the years and through studies, they have discovered that both have amazing potential in managing one of the biggest issues and challenges that exist in the United States, which is mental health, behavioral health.
Mhm.
We talked about this briefly, and you you look at a lot of these athletes that are expected to perform at a specific level day in, day out, regardless, because if not, it affects their contracts or affects their ability to get signed on, particularly within the NFL. I've spoken with a lot of team doctors that without them giving me details because they sign NDAs, but they
Mhm.
tell me all the kids that are aspiring to be professional athletes, playing through the pain and the mental and psychological and emotional abuse that goes on in and among these kids. I watched uh, uh, Simone Biles's Netflix uh, documentary and
Mhm.
seeing the struggle that this little girl was going through. I'm dad. My twins are 28 years old, so I could be this little girl's dad. And watching her explain the struggles that she had to go through, or guys like Michael Phelps, that has an underlying condition. He has ADHD, and his mom put him in swimming to see if that could calm his butt down. And then it was, he was expected to win 24/7,
Yeah.
regardless. And so, and then we had a little thing called COVID, where for 2 years, we were on lockdown. We couldn't do this, we couldn't do that, we couldn't go here, we couldn't go there. And so that has further stressed the world, but in our country, even more so, especially among certain, ethnicities. I'm of Hispanic descent. You know,
Mhm.
do not, especially as men, do not say, "Oh, I'm sad or I'm depressed," because the first thing they're going to say is, the F word. Are you, you little fag, man up. What's wrong with you? It's like, wait a minute, what do you mean? It's like, it's an emotion. I'm not wallowing in it, but there's times where shit, I need, some type of stimulation to like get me past the struggles and the trauma of dealing with disease, people
Mhm.
dying. Right now, one of my very dearest best friends is fighting for his life in the hospital with pneumonia in both lungs. And when I saw him 2 days ago, he had a tube down his throat. Now, this was one of my mentors, one of my professors, somebody that I admired, looked up to, have been, we've been friends in 1992. And I walk in and he's laying in a hospital bed with a tube down his throat into his lungs, and he's being breathed by a machine, and he's connected to all these tubes and all these wires. And his wife is sitting there looking at me like, okay, what do I do, doc? And I'm like, oh, shit, this is my buddy. Like, I can't be objective. So
Yeah.
understanding that a lot of the medications that exist to treat anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorder, the side effects are greater in many cases than the actual treatment, than the actual disease, rather. And so going with something that's natural, like cannabis, that it is a plant, that they've studied that there are different strains, for lack of a better term. That's the terminology that's been used for years. And so that we'll use common vernacular, but, and the different components within the plant, you know, is it THC? Is it CBD? Is it CBN? Is it CBG? It's an alphabet soup out there. And so you need some guidance, some direction, because you go into a bud tender, or you live in a state like Texas where the rules and regulations are so freaking strict. And then
Yeah.
you go, to the opposite end of the spectrum, and you go, to Colorado, where it's like, or Northwest, like Oregon and Washington State, where it's the Wild Wild West free for all. And you've got a full array of what do I do? Where do I go? And so that's where I, as a healthcare professional, understanding both sides of the coin, am able to, guide and direct individuals to be able to receive the best treatment for their specific condition. And, my patients range from as young as, 6 months of age, all the way up to over 100 years of age. Um, and each one is managed and treated differently. You know, my 85-year-old mother that has had 2 strokes in the past 7 months and has a touch of dementia and has never smoked a day in her life. I'm not going to give her a pre-roll and say, "Here, mom, smoke this." She doesn't know what the hell to do. But if I
Yeah.
give her a piece of chocolate and say, "Here's dessert," that's a treat. Oh, my son gave me a piece of chocolate. What little does she know is that that piece of chocolate contains 10 milligrams of THC. It's an indica, which is going to help her sleep, which is going to help her relax and rest and wake up refreshed. And she's not going to be up all night watching, YouTube videos or, watching, you know, sweet, you know, your
Sweet.
podcast, because everything that I do, she wants to see. So she'll be watching you tonight. So combining the two is the key. So
Mhm.
I do work with a lot of mental behavioral health issues, and I do manage patients, with the medical cannabis as well as the ketamine in different modes of administration to address the primary issues, which are treatment resistant depression, people that have been on at least 2 antidepressants and are still depressed, and as a result of still being depressed, can lead them to suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideations. They're contemplating taking their lives. You know, that was the cause of death for my father when I was 11 years old. He was 35 and he took his life. So this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart because I grew up without a dad. Had he had the help, had he had somebody that knew about these two substances, it probably could have changed his outlook and he'd still be here with us. We don't know. Um, and then the other, aside from treatment resistant depression and suicidal ideation, is post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. You know,
Mhm.
who has not gone through some type of challenge in their life that has led them to suffer or think about, oh, damn, that's a trigger that sets me off. You know, I get a letter from a specific government agency called with 3 letters. And the minute I get that, I go to the mailbox and I pull that envelope with those 3 little letters. I'm like, okay, how much do I owe?
Yeah. Oh god. I'm dreading that too, trust me. I'm dreading that.
Especially, it's February and it's coming April 15th. So
Yeah. I hear you on that. We're talking to Dr. Joseph Rosado, and Doc, I appreciate you giving us the difference and the differences where it can help you, where it's needed. People with PTSD. My dad was a veteran of the Vietnam War. Obviously, when you're dealing with wars and army, military, coming back from a war like that, that was really really difficult for him. He suffered a little bit from PTSD. Wasn't as bad as I know a lot of guys actually have it out there. When you're talking about the treatments that you provide, how I guess this is coming from somebody personally me. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. Period. I mean, the worst I've done is drink alcohol. So when I'm looking at this from the outside, how like I'm trying to figure out how to actually ask this. When it comes to the treatment, how closely is it monitored? Because this is something that I know, you know, marijuana is not addictive, cannabis and this and that, we have everything that comes out on that. But using some of the treatments, is it something that has to be monitored super closely regardless? Or is it something where, okay, I feel it's comfortable enough to say this is your prescription, this is what you're going to do, and then come back for me after a while? How does that process work?
that's an excellent question. And it depends on the individual. And that's where the two schools of thought come into play. Is it
Mm,
a medical cannabis program or is it an adult use, AKA recreational program?
mhm,
This morning, I read an article that was sent to me that was just published at the end of last month here at the University of Central Florida, but they compiled data from all over the United States where they showed that in states where there is an adult use, aka recreational program, the prescriptions for opiates decreased. And not only did the prescriptions decrease, the need for opiates to manage and treat pain also decreased. So that's, proof positive that people are looking at cannabis as an alternative because they're tired of being given a medication that we know 95% of the people that use it will become addicted. And after 3 to 6 months of being on this medication, it no longer manages or treats pain because it causes what's called hyperalgesia syndrome. It causes you to feel more pain, makes you more sensitive. So in the short run, in the short term, yeah, it's useful, but for chronic pain, there's got to be something better. And that something better is the medical cannabis. So in someone like you that has never inhaled, other than to breathe daily, um, but to inhale a substance, I would be managing you a little differently. I would be giving you oils or tinctures to put under your tongue. I would be
Mhm.
managing you with topical creams or patches if you're dealing with pain. I would be discussing using edibles, whether it's a gummy or a chocolate or a cookie or a brownie. Or I would be discussing using what's called a meter dose inhaler, which is very similar to an albuterol inhaler, which is what people use that have asthma. There are some dispensaries that have nasal sprays because guess what? I did say that my youngest patient was 6 months old. This child
Mhm.
doesn't know how to inhale.
Mhm.
So mom's not going to, light one up and fire them and say, oh, here you go, have at it, kid. There are nasal sprays that mom and dad can squirt inside their nose and give them 5 milligrams of medication with each puff. You know, so that's different modes of administration. Uh, but as far as monitoring, again, it comes down to the patient's comfort level. If I have, an octogenarian that has never used cannabis ever in their lives, and they're on 15, 20 different prescription medications, we've got to work closely to be able to make sure that they don't end up with a drug-drug interaction or adverse reaction that they green out, they end up dialing 911, and then EMS shows up, they get to the emergency department, and then they're labeled with cannabis use disorder. Well, no, they,
Mhm.
they don't have cannabis use disorder. They just ate an entire gummy and took their blood pressure medicine and their anxiety medicine at the same freaking time. And so,
Yeah.
you know, but one, they didn't follow the instructions that their doctor gave them. Secondly, you know, it's a process. And so that's where, people are able to reach out to me virtually, either through my website or through on my social media platforms and educate, find me and help me
Mhm.
understand what their problem is so then I can help them navigate through the process.
Talking to Dr. Joseph Rosado. You can go visit his website, www.josephrosadomd.com, to contact him today. Talking about the life changing conditions that a lot of people face and the alternative treatments that he provides. And we talked about monitoring the treatments. We talked about what treatments are available. Reasons being that you want to maybe look at some of these alternative treatments by contacting Dr. Joseph Rosado. And the other part of it too was, is there a time frame? So say you're I'm me, and I've got this dramatic thing that I've got going on. I need a relaxing time because my mind's just racing and I'm having a hard time. I see you, I go for treatment. The last question I've got regarding it is the fact of, okay, I know I'm getting treatment. I know I'm being monitored because I'm a newbie, as the kids they call them newbies. I'm a noob.
Mhm.
So I have to be monitored. Now, is there a point where, okay, A, this is where it ends? You feel like you're treated, you feel like you're feeling good. Is there a end point or an end game for it? But also, you mentioned medical stuff. I don't take medicine, but I know a lot of people have, like my wife takes high blood pressure pills and all that. How does all that go into effect with everything?
And that, again, that's where working closely with a physician comes into play. So for the
Mhm.
novice like you, or one of my buddies, he has a Doobie scale. Doobie 1 to Doobie 4. Doobie 4 is, Snoop and Willie Nelson. And then Doobie 1 would be you, someone that has zero experience, and then everybody else falls in between.
Yeah.
And so the way I would address, shout out to Barry Gordon because he came up with the Doobie scale here in Southwest Florida and Venice, Florida. But again, I it would we would monitor the individual. That's why it's a doctor's visit. When people come to our office and see me for medical cannabis or ketamine or anything for that matter, we have to do a history. We have to take a history. We encourage the patients to bring in all their medications, supplements, so we know exactly what they're taking, how much they're taking, how often they're taking it. Then the next question is, how experienced are you with cannabis? You know, what experience do you have? Do you know how to inhale? Do you not know how to inhale? Do you have a sensitive palate? You know, because there are some people that have a palate of a 5-year-old and you tell them to take an edible or an oil. Oh no, it tastes terrible, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well then this is a person that's going to need a capsule, a gel capsule. Someone that's older, they're used to taking their medicines in a capsule or a pill. Okay, so let's meet you where you are. Let's treat you the way you are accustomed to being treated, and let's work together to figure this out. And so, what's your main complaint? What are your conditions? How experienced are you? And then let's go from there. And then we determine at that point how frequently they're seen. If someone comes in with a lot of experience, a veteran, for example, from the Vietnam era that has been smoking since the late 60s, early 70s, you know, I got nothing for them, truth be told. But they still ask me, they're like, you know what, doc, I've been smoking this, since the 60s, 70s. I know that the cannabis now is different than what I was smoking back in the
Mhm.
day. What do you recommend? What do you think I should stay away from based on my history? And so, they'll come in understanding what works for them, but they also want to know what's new, improved, and is going to help them get better faster. And so, they come in with that level of humility and willingness to learn. Then you have the other ones, that come in and say, you know, I'm just here to get a card because I want to be legal, because, I don't want to buy something on the street that's got fentanyl or heroin or angel dust or cocaine, which
Mhm.
happens. A lot of cannabis is being laced with these other substances, which, as a former, paramedic, EMT and paramedic on the street, you know, that that was our worst nightmare, being encountered with
Yeah.
something we had no clue about. I was a paramedic in the early to mid 80s when crack cocaine was in vogue. And for the first few shifts, we had zero clue how to treat crack cocaine overdoses. It was new. And
Hmm.
we had no understanding. We had no concept of how to treat these kids that were overdosing on crack cocaine. And so, for that reason, you know, if there is a medical cannabis program in your jurisdiction, it would behoove you just to go ahead and get the card and get products from a dispensary that are third party tested, independently tested, and you know that what you're getting is going to be to your benefit, not to your detriment.
We are talking to Dr. Joseph Rosado. Again, www.josephrosadomd.com to contact Dr. Joseph today. You you've not even kind of, you've answered a lot of the questions that I had, because again, you see it on the news, and I tend to be the person to where I look at the TV and I look at the news and I see what they're saying, but I hate the fact that I get it from every side. So I like to go to a source and say, okay, what is this? how is this going to work for me? And then I also go to other sources. I try to get multiple opinions on it because that's, I think, the best research to do is get multiple opinions. And I'm glad you were able to talk to us today because, again, you know, I know a lot of people. I have family members that deal with depression. I've got family members that get to the absolute lowest point. And in life, I think everybody gets to the lowest point at one point in their life. So we're all going to have to end up dealing with something like this. So again, contact Dr. Joseph Rosado today, www.josephrosadomd.com. Doc, before I let you go, we've got to do our top five. And we're going to take a break. We're going to unplug from the medical side of everything that we've been talking about, how we kind of worked that in the title there. And we're going to go because you said that you were a Spurs fan. And, you know, we here in San Antonio, as we kick the music off like we have been on Sweep Unplugged here, we are San Antonio Spurs. We are San Antonio. We've got 5 titles. And we've had some great players in the history of San Antonio. So for you, Doc, today, let everybody know, who are your top 5 players in San Antonio Spurs history. Now, before you go, I got to make a disclaimer here. One of the brothers of one of the former players is a host on Sweep the League. His name is Derek Gervin. So you can include his brother if you want, but we're not forcing you to. But let us know your top 5 players for Spurs.
That is my number 5.
Okay. George Gervin, number 5.
Number 5, George Gervin. Now, before I continue, the reason why I like the San Antonio Spurs is because the way they play basketball. I'm a big football fan, not American football, real football. And the ball movement and the ball play reminds me of, basketball and what Americans call soccer. So that being said, number 5, George Gervin.
All right.
Number 4, Tony Parker.
Okay.
Number 3, Manu Ginobili.
All right.
Number 2, David Robinson, not Oscar Robertson, David Robinson. And number 1, Tim Duncan.
That's a very, very respectable top 5 right there, because that's pretty much everybody's top 5.
Honorable mention, Avery Johnson, and I'm going to get shit for this one, Dennis Rodman.
No, you wouldn't get that bad. You probably get more hate if you said Kawhi Leonard. I know that gets a lot of hate around here, but I mean,
no, I would those words would never come out of my mouth.
Well, I mean, the guy's a champion. He was a Finals MVP. I mean, he could accomplish a lot. So, well, yeah.
Those are the so he was too much of a crybaby.
He should have visited Joseph RosadoMD.com.
And gotten his medical cannabis card from me. We would have calmed his ass down quite a bit.
Oh God, the wonders of that would have done back in the day, because maybe he would have stayed with the San Antonio Spurs. But you go to the hypothetical side. If he stays, do the Spurs ever land a player like Victor Wembanyama? It's so hard to say if they do. Yeah. So things happen for a reason. Dr. Joseph Rosado, I appreciate you joining us here on Sweep the League. Well, actually, Sweep Unplugged, part of the Sweep the League network. If you got any last words out there for everybody, this is your time to shine, sir.
Absolutely. The way I end all my interviews and the way I sign my books, which I have written 7, I've written and published 7 different books on the topic. They are all available on Amazon. But the first one, entitled Hope and Healing, The Case for Cannabis, that was published April 20th of 2019. And when I sign my books and I sign off on my interviews, I always end with the following: #cannabis is medicine. People talk about marijuana, cannabis being a gateway drug. It is truthfully not a gateway drug. The gateway drug is a legal drug. You mentioned it earlier. It's called alcohol. More people drank alcohol way before they smoked the joint. So that's not the true gateway drug. An exit, as one of my colleagues says, it is an exit medicine, helping people to leave addiction, dependence, and go the natural route.
There you go. Dr. Joseph Rosado, josephrosadomd.com is where you want to contact him, and giving you all these alternative treatments for life-changing conditions. Dr. Joseph, again, appreciate you joining us here on Sweep Unplugged. And for everybody out there, if you want to catch Sweep Unplugged, all these great interviews that we've got, all the content we got, go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, hit that subscribe button where you're going to get every single episode we've done of every single show that we've got on the network. So for Dr. Joseph Rosado, it is Rudy Campos Jr. Until we sweep the league again, we'll see everybody later, you knuckleheads.